My name is Jonas Halloway, federal investigator with a background in psychological operations and missing persons cases. I've worked in places no one wants to visit twice. Arctic outposts, flooded bayous, desert towns swallowed by sand and silence. But none of them feel like Nome, Alaska. There's something unnatural about this place. It's not just the cold or the endless dark. It's the feeling that something has been left open. A door, maybe. Or a wound. That's why they sent me here. The official report said it was over. The black ships had vanished. The disappearances had stopped. No more lights in the sky. No more dreams that ended in screaming. But the locals knew better. They always do. And the new reports were worse. No more people vanishing. Not exactly. Now, it was the people who stayed behind. The ones who looked fine on the outside, who were starting to act off. Showing up on porches in the middle of the night. Silent. Staring. Offering cakes, cookies, or bread they claimed to have baked. And their eyes. Always those pitch-black eyes. I checked into the Nugget Inn under my real name. Didn't see the point in going covert. Everyone here already knew something was wrong. You could feel it in the way they spoke in half sentences. You could see it in their windows, drawn tight with blankets and duct tape, like light itself was dangerous. The front desk woman, Wendy, greeted me with a smile that was all muscle memory. "You hear about the people with pies?" she asked, deadpan. "I'm here about the people who don't answer the door anymore," I replied. She slid me a key without asking for ID. Room 6. No room service. No maid. No Wi-Fi. Only heat, flickering lights, and the wind howling off the Bering Sea. My first night, I stayed awake with my sidearm on the nightstand and a digital recorder running. Nothing. Just creaks, ice shifting on the roof. Distant generator hum. Until 2:13 a.m. 3 knocks. Soft, steady. I moved to the peephole. A woman stood there. Mid-50s, grey knit cap, pale face lit by the porch lamp. She was smiling. In her hands, a red plastic container, the kind you bring deviled eggs to church in. Her lips moved. No sound. She knocked again. "Mr. Halloway," she said, this time loud enough for me to hear. "I brought something for you, something sweet." Her eyes were black, not dark, black, like nothing lived behind them, like they weren't eyes at all. "You've been working too hard," she said, voice like warm syrup. "This will help." I didn't respond. She waited another moment, then slowly turned and walked down the steps, disappearing into the dark. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I interviewed a man named Eli Grant, retired bush pilot, tough as nails. The kind of guy you expect to outlive the apocalypse. He hadn't left his cabin in 5 days. "They're not right," he told me, rocking slowly in his chair. "They come late, holding bread or brownies or whatever, and they ask to be let in. They know your name. They say things you told no one." I asked him what happened when they knocked. He looked me dead in the eye. "They don't knock if you're already theirs." I asked him how he resisted. "I bled for hours from my ears and nose," he said. "Felt like someone was squeezing my brain with pliers. But I didn't open the damn door." Later that day, I visited a home on 4th Street. 2 bodies at the table, husband and wife. Slumped. Frozen expressions of calm, blood trails from ears, eyes, nose. In the center of the table, a homemade banana cream pie, untouched. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle, just welcome acceptance. I reviewed my files again that night. 6 other similar cases. The gifts vary, muffins, apple turnovers, bundt cake, but the symptoms are always the same. Victims die of cranial hemorrhage. No physical trauma. Cause of death listed as sudden aneurysm. But it isn't random. It's targeted and something else. The same phrase keeps showing up in survivor interviews. You've already let us in. That night at 2:13 a.m. the knocking returned. This time it was a young boy, maybe 12, black parka, holding a pie tin with a sloppy chocolate crust. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He smiled and spoke softly. "You're already one of us, Mr. Halloway. You just don't remember yet." If Chapter 1 of this investigation was denial, then Chapter 2 is where you start to accept the rules of the nightmare. No phone calls go out after midnight. If someone knocks after 2:13 a.m., you do not answer. And whatever you do, never eat anything that wasn't made by your own hands. The next morning I met with Sheriff Nolan. He's a local, thick moustache, bloodshot eyes, and a 1,000-yard stare that says he's seen too much. We talked over weak coffee in the back office of the station. "We've had 17 cases in the last month," he said, sliding a stack of manila folders across the desk. "Dead in their homes, no signs of struggle, bleeding from the head. One had a brain so swollen the coroner said it looked like it had been microwaved." I flipped through photos. Every one of them had food on the table. Pastries, casseroles, muffins, each one untouched. Each victim seated like they were about to say grace. "You think it's radiation?" he asked, almost hoping I'd say yes. "No," I said. "Radiation doesn't knock." I made my way to an address that had been red-flagged, 721 Fletcher Avenue. A single-story home on the edge of town, partially snowed in. The mailbox had no name on it. The windows were covered with black garbage bags taped from the inside. I knocked. No answer. I jimmied the door. The smell hit me first. Something sour, coppery, and burnt sugar. Inside, the walls were bare, the furniture overturned, and the lights flickered like a dying bulb. And there, sitting cross-legged in the middle of the living room, was a woman, alive, hair matted, skin flushed, and arms covered in deep, jagged cuts, like she'd tried to dig something out of herself. She looked up. Her eyes weren't black, but they weren't quite human either. "They crawled inside me," she whispered. "They didn't need to open my mouth. They used my thoughts, my memories." I tried to get closer, but she screamed and scrambled backward. "I let them in," she sobbed. "They knock to be polite, but they don't need permission. Once you think about them, they're already inside." I called for backup and paramedics. She was sedated and taken to the clinic. I don't know if she'll survive the night. That evening I received a flash drive under my motel door. No note, no return address. I plugged it into my encrypted laptop. One file, a single video. It was security footage from inside a home kitchen. A man sat at the table, nervously glancing toward the front door. He clutched a steak knife. Beside him sat a woman, possibly his wife. She held a plate of what looked like cornbread muffins. The video had no sound, but you could see her mouth moving, calm, gentle, smiling. He was shaking, terrified. Then she reached out and placed a muffin on his plate. He pushed it away. She leaned closer and said something quiet. But the moment she did, he screamed and clutched his head. Blood poured from his ears. He collapsed, convulsing, as she calmly chewed on her muffin and smiled toward the camera. I tried tracing the source of the footage. IP was scrubbed, metadata erased, but the timestamp read 2:13 a.m. Of course it did. I've started mapping the incidents. Most of them fall within a rough spiral, radiating outward from a point just outside town, a wooded stretch known as Killick Hollow. The locals avoid it, even before all this. Old folklore says the area was cursed. The kind of story old-timers tell to scare kids. Now, not so funny. I drove out there. No streetlights, just snow and trees and silence. At the end of a narrow service trail, I found what looked like an old mining shack, half collapsed, door off the hinges. Inside, burned floorboards, black ash and claw marks on the walls. Not scratches, gouges. And one more thing, a baking tray, still warm. I left fast, but not fast enough. As I walked back to my SUV, I heard a voice behind me. "Jonas." I turned. No one there, just the cold, and the rising pressure in my skull, like altitude sickness combined with static. I bled from my nose on the drive back. Didn't even notice until I parked. Sheriff Nolan called me later that night. "Had another one," he said. "You're not going to believe this." The victim was a girl, 9 years old, died in her sleep. No signs of trauma. But her brother said something that froze my blood. She ate the cake the lady brought. "What lady?" I asked. He paused. "The one with no eyes, the one who came in through the walls." This thing, it's not just about being polite. They knock for tradition. But if you ignore them who long, they don't ask anymore. I didn't sleep after that call. I just sat on the bed watching the shadows stretch across the ceiling. At 2:13 a.m. sharp, there were 3 soft knocks on the motel door. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there. Just a small bundt cake on the welcome mat, frosted in white with "Home" written across it in neat red icing. I kicked it off the porch with the barrel of my gun and waited until dawn. That morning, I returned to Killick Hollow, alone. I'd already requested satellite imagery of the area, but the most recent data had been flagged and redacted. That's never a good sign. Government silence always means one of two things. Either they don't know what's happening, or they know too much. I passed the same burnt-out shack from the previous day, this time armed with a body cam and a field radiation monitor. Both gave strange readings. Not radiation, not magnetic fields either, just interference. The body cam distorted every 10 seconds, like something invisible moved in front of it. The sound, static, low, rhythmic, almost musical. Then I heard the voice again. "Jonas!" It came from the tree line. I turned and saw her. The same woman from the Nugget Inn. Grey knit cap, same pale smile, same red plastic container in her hands. Only now, she wasn't standing. She was hovering 2 inches above the snow, not floating like a ghost, just wrong, like gravity had given up on her. "You're hungry," she said gently. "It's okay to be tired." I raised my weapon. Her mouth didn't move again, but I still heard her, inside my head. "I remember your mother. Her pies, her aprons, the way she wept when you left. My ears rang. My vision blurred. Blood trickled from my left nostril." She stepped forward. "You let me in that night, Jonas. You looked into my eyes and you wanted it." I stumbled backward. My head was on fire. I could feel something burrowing behind my eyes. I fired twice. She vanished before the bullets hit. Not dodged, not ducked. She just ceased to be there. I collapsed in the snow and didn't move for what felt like an hour. When I finally sat up, I saw something in the trees. A shape, not human, tall, elongated limbs, black as oil under moonlight. It had no eyes, no mouth, just a long, sloped head like a candle that had melted wrong. It didn't chase me, it just stood there, watching. I drove back into town half mad and half blind from the pressure behind my eyes. The ER scanned me, nothing abnormal on the MRI, but I could feel it like a parasite curling behind the bone. I took 2 days to recover, In that time, 6 more people died. Every one of them had received food. Every one of them had bled from the face. And in every case, neighbors reported hearing voices through the walls the night before. Some said it was singing. Others said it sounded like a child crying. But the phrase that kept showing up in transcripts was this: "Let us finish what we started." I asked Sheriff Nolan if anyone had ever lived out in Killick Hollow. Any old cabins, retired miners, cult activity, something. He nodded slowly. There used to be a boarding house there, back in the 60s, burned down in 79. They said the owners, an old couple, went missing. Guests started vanishing. Town shut it down and buried the records. Why? He hesitated. Because one of the survivors said the old woman didn't cook meals. She made offerings. To what? He didn't answer. That night I reviewed old audio tapes from the Nome PD archives. One in particular chilled me in my core. A teenage girl, breathless and panicked, speaking into a tape recorder in 1981. The file had never been digitized. "They come with pies," she whispered. "They come wearing familiar faces, and if you speak to them, they get stronger. You have to pretend they're not there." Then a knock. On her tape. 3 gentle raps, followed by silence. And then, "You let us in when you dream." I haven't slept in 72 hours. My thoughts aren't safe anymore. Sometimes I feel her in there, like she's reading my memories, picking them apart like scraps. And the worst part? I'm starting to forget what my mother's real voice sounded like. My teeth have started to chatter even when I'm warm. My reflection lags in the mirror. I blink and it doesn't. I tell myself I'm imagining it, but deep down, I know. They're inside me now. Sheriff Nolan doesn't answer his radio anymore. I tried calling, got nothing but static and a high-pitched whine like a modem from the 90s. I drove to his house this morning. His cruiser was parked out front, porch light still on. The front door was open. Inside, the table was set for 2. Freshly baked cinnamon rolls on a platter, still steaming. There was blood smeared along the floorboards and a single muddy footprint leading back out into the yard. But no Nolan, just his badge on the floor, bent, warm, like someone had been holding it seconds before I got there. The town's getting emptier, not from people leaving, from people changing. Wendy at the front desk doesn't speak anymore. She just smiles and sets out fresh muffins every hour on the hour. Always the same type, blueberry, perfectly shaped, identical. The rest of the guests have stopped making noise altogether. I haven't heard a single voice through the walls in 2 days. I passed room 4 this morning. The door was cracked open. Inside, a woman sat on the bed in her nightgown, legs crossed, staring at the wall. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. Her mouth was sewn shut. And beside her, a cake. Chocolate. 1 slice removed. No blood, just quiet. At night, I lock the door, block it with furniture, and wear noise-cancelling headphones. It doesn't help. I still hear them. Not outside anymore, but in my head. They don't knock for me now. They speak. They show me things. Images that feel like dreams but burn like memories. The first time I saw the sky open above Nome, the humming, the pressure, the taste of metal, the sound of time stalling, and a voice, soft, maternal and wrong, saying, "This is how you forget who you were." I made the mistake of opening my laptop last night. A video file had been added. I didn't put it there. It showed my motel room, camera angle from the ceiling corner. I was asleep. The door opened at 2:13 a.m. sharp. A tall, thin man entered. No face, no sound, just a black silhouette in the shape of a person, holding a pie in one hand and what looked like a child's stuffed rabbit in the other. He stood over me, didn't move. Then, slowly, leaned in until he was an inch from my face. The screen glitched. When it resumed, he was gone. I was still asleep, and there was a pie on the nightstand. I didn't touch it, but I think it doesn't matter anymore because when I checked the bathroom mirror, my pupils weren't reacting to light. They were spreading. The black was bleeding outward. Tonight I saw someone I knew, not from Nome, from before. Agent Lacey. Used to run ops with me back in Panama. Vanished 6 years ago. She was outside my window in the snow wearing the same jacket she wore the day she disappeared. No gloves, no hat, no frostbite. She held a casserole dish, and her mouth was moving. I didn't need to hear the words. I knew what she was saying. We never left. Killick Hollow is spreading. The strange behavior, the voices, the memory holes, it's reaching outside the tree line now, into town, into minds, into me. I don't know what they are anymore. I don't think they're aliens, not in the flying saucer sense. I think they're ideas made flesh, invasive thoughts that grow teeth, living memories. They knock to be polite, but if you remember them, that's the invitation. I woke up this morning with a slice of pie on my pillow, still warm, crust perfect, no crumbs anywhere. I checked the door, still locked, windows still bolted, no signs of entry. But I knew what it meant. They'd stopped knocking. I've started losing time, gaps in memory, 10 minutes here, an hour there. I'll look down and realize I'm somewhere else, walking down Front Street or staring into the woods, or standing barefoot in the snow behind the Nugget Inn, watching the sky pulse. I stopped recording my findings, stopped sending reports, because I think I've already said too much. And maybe that's the whole game. They want us to speak, to write, to remember. That's how they grow, that's how they move, like mold, but psychic. Today I followed the last lead I'll ever get, a name written in my own handwriting on a sticky note beside my bed. I don't remember writing it. Margaret Lawn, 12 miles east of Killick Hollow. I drove out into the white silence. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of tires on snow and the low hiss of something old humming below the surface of the world. Her cabin was untouched by time. A perfect wood structure with smoke coming from the chimney, cozy, inviting. The front door was already open. Inside, Margaret sat at the table, eyes milky, smiling. Around her were 6 others, men and women, all dead, blood pooled under their chairs like puddles of rust. And in the center of the table, a feast, roasted meat, stuffing, breads, pies, none of it spoiled, none of it cold. She turned to me, still smiling. "You came hungry," she said. "No," I whispered. She stood, creaking like old branches, and walked around the table. "You don't have to pretend anymore. You remember now, don't you? That night in the field, the black light, the gift they gave you." I backed away. My nose was bleeding again, my eyes pulsing with pressure. She pressed a piece of cornbread into my hand. "You've always been one of us, Jonas, you just forgot." I dropped the bread and drew my weapon. She didn't flinch. "You'll eat," she said, voice warping, "sooner or later." The others at the table, those dead men and women, began to smile, blood running from their noses, teeth exposed, but smiling. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the truck. Inside, I screamed until my voice broke, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, my eyes were black. That was 3 days ago. Now I sit in my motel room, windows covered, door bolted, laptop open. And I'm writing this for you, Yes, you, reading this. Because that's how it spreads. Thought to word, word to memory, memory to home. You'll dream of them soon. You'll hear the knock. You'll smell the bread. You'll think of someone you loved long ago. Thank you for listening to The Others, a tale of eerie encounters, missing time, and a cold knock at the door you should never answer. If this story kept you up tonight, be sure to subscribe to Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. Leave a comment below and tell us, what would you do if they came to your door? Until next time, keep your lights low and your doors locked.